All right, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting for Thursday, December 3rd for the Planning and Zoning Commission. If everybody would please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. And before we jump into roll call, I would just ask that commission members and or audience, as you guys come forward, if we can speak clearly into the microphone, so if you need to slide it closer to you, just so that way we can make sure we're getting appropriate recordings as we need for minutes and other things. So with that, would you please call the roll?
Here.
Member Benedict?
Here.
Member Strata?
Here.
Member Dugan? Member Snyder?
Present.
Vice Chairman McBride?
Here.
Chairman Miller?
Here. Thank you. And Director, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
I would like to note that the agenda does not include the approval of the minutes from your November meeting. We were unable to complete those, so though the minutes from November as well as this evening's minutes will be on your January agenda for approval.
Thank you. All right, so before we jump into the heart of the agenda, I'll just kind of run through. Hopefully everybody can hear me, even those outside in the waiting area. This evening, as staff will get the opportunity to present the agenda item, and then once complete, commission will get the opportunity to ask any questions that are needed from staff. From there, we will ask the applicant and or their representative to come forward, allow them to add any additional information, field any questions that are needed, and then from there, we will open it up to the public in case there's anybody from the public here that would like to speak in regards to a particular agenda item. At that time, we'd ask that if you do come forward, keep it brief. We'll make sure that any questions are noted, and we will bring back the appropriate party, whether that be staff and or applicant, to answer those questions. So hopefully everybody gets their voice heard as well as answers to their questions. With that, we will start with old business. We have a public hearing and consideration of request by Regal Construction and Consulting LLC on behalf of Cox Communications for a conditional use permit, 7-foot tall special purpose fence for the property located at 1395 East Colorado Loop, DSA 2000142.
Thank you, Chairman Miller, members of the Planning Commission.
Real quick.
This request has been in front of you twice before, so the goal here is to provide a quick summary of what's transpired in the previous meetings and then also update you with what has most recently occurred with regard to this request. So you first heard this conditional use permit application at the October 1st meeting. The initial request was for a 10-foot tall tubular steel fence around a portion of the Cox facility site at the northeast corner of Colorado Street and Colorado Loop. The purpose for this 10-foot tall fence was to comply with Department of Homeland Security directives for bolstered security measures that was to apply for facilities housing critical infrastructure. The city code allows fencing of this height. However, when fencing is taller than 6 feet and proposed to a residential area, a conditional use permit would be required in order for that to actually be executed. There were concerns based on this proposal for a number of reasons. One, the neighborhood felt that the proposed fence was too tall and too industrial looking, and ultimately it was tabled due to these concerns as well as questions from the commission and neighborhood that couldn't be addressed due to the lack of representation from Cox Communications at that meeting. On November 5th, the second meeting, Cox did present a revision to their request, understanding feedback that they had received from the first meeting regarding the concerns. And so they revised their proposal to a 7-foot tall fence that was comprised of the bottom portion being 3 feet of concrete masonry unit block and the top 4 feet being of tubular steel, again around just a portion of the site. They were proposing it to be basically 15 feet from all property lines, with the exception of the southeast portion of the site as Colorado Loop curves up a little bit to the north there. And also, one of the conditions was that they were to amend the landscape plan to add some shrubs and trees at the discretion of the planning staff. It was tabled again because residents did express concerns that the proposed fence would really not effectively stop trespassers cutting through the Cox site from Cottonwood Lane on into the Cottonwood Commons neighborhood. And there were a lot of questions regarding what type of landscaping measures would be taken to address some of the concerns about the visual appearance of the fence. And then also HOA iterated wanting to have an opportunity to meet with Cox, because that had not been accomplished the first time. So fortunately, a neighborhood meeting did occur on Tuesday, November 17th, between Cox representatives and the HOA president, as well as the property association manager. And there were some positive takeaways from that meeting, and I'll just sort of walk through those with you. So one of the takeaways that is, if the fence were to be approved, the preference was for it to surround the entire site to address those trespass concerns. And also the objective was that they wanted to see the same consistent new fencing throughout, consisting again of a 7-foot maximum height with a CMU base and tubular steel up top. The existing block wall that is made up of the residential structure, the westernmost lot on the north part of Colorado Loop, would remain there, and that would form part of the boundary. The other aspects is that even though staff is still suggesting a minimum of 15 feet setback from public roads, it would effectively be 30 feet from Cottonwood Lane and 15 feet from Colorado Street and Colorado Loop. However, there would still be a portion near the southeast corner of the site that would be closer than 15 feet from the fence to the property line to help accommodate the curve in Colorado Loop and based on where the placement of the existing trash enclosure is. At the meeting that was held between the Cox representatives and HOA representatives was fence colors. So what was discussed was having the top portion of the fence match the lighter block wall color that exists within the Cottonwood Commons neighborhood along the eastern boundary of that neighborhood that you see in the top photo. And then the bottom part, the CMU portion, is to match the color of the perimeter wall that you see parallel to Colorado Street. Also, landscaping was discussed at that meeting, and Cox agreed to amend the final landscape plan to plant additional trees west of the westernmost residence on the north side of Colorado Loop. That was the result of the HOA president talking with various neighbors and hearing from them what their general concerns were. Also, to help also address some neighbors' concerns, is there would be an additional tree planted east of the access drive off of Colorado Loop, as well as some shrubs to mask the backflow preventer and fire suppression valve. Additionally, Cox is to replant trees and shrubs that have since died from the original implementation of the final landscape plan, and that's the in addition to various shrubs that lie sort of between the curb and the trees, they've also identified 2 trees along Colorado Lane that have subsequently died that will be replaced. This picture shows the area where there would be, a concentration of an additional tree and some shrubs to just dress up that area a little bit more, because that's near the entrance on Colorado Loop for a lot of the residents. Based on that neighborhood meeting and what was discussed and what was agreed upon, the recommended conditions of approval have been modified and adjusted to reflect some existing conditions that staff was recommending, as well as some of those new takeaways. And that's been reflected in your staff report. And I'd be happy to touch upon them, specifically tonight in this presentation. But I felt that it was a positive meeting, and it sort of reached a point where there was some agreement with regard to what can be done to dress up the site, to accommodate the concerns from some of the residents, as well as being able to help Cox address their concern about building a fence to meet the security concerns. When reviewing conditional use permits for special purpose fences, these are the 5 criteria that have to be evaluated. I'm not going to go over these criteria as it's been expressed in more detail in the staff report. However, if you have questions about any one of those 5, I'd be happy to talk about it. As far as the public notification process, this has been notified 3 times with each scheduled hearing. There was a recent correspondence received the other day by email, and I forwarded it on to the commissioners. It didn't make it into the staff report, but it was from a resident directly across the street from the Cox facility. She participated in the last 2 meetings and indicated that she probably wasn't going to make it to this evening's meeting, but she advised that she's still opposed. She doesn't agree that a fence is needed. Cox has not been truthful that a fence is needed, and would ask that the city should respect the desires of the neighborhood and deny this request for the proposed 7-foot fence. Staff does recommend, however, that the Planning Commission approve this conditional use permit and its associated resolution, subject to some minor technical modifications and then the specific conditions found in the conditional use permit resolution. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? No? All right, thank you. At this time, then, would the applicant and/or their representative like to come forward?
Thank you. I know this has taken a lot of your time, and we apologize for that.
One second, please. Microphone.
Can you speak closer to the microphone? Might not be on.
Is it on?
Let's check and see if it's on.
Hey, there we go.
He's got a special degree for that.
Yeah. I missed that class.
Leave it to our legal team to be our IT team. All right.
It was $150 right there.
Thank you again. I know this item has taken a lot of your time, and we apologize for that, but we do appreciate the opportunity to find a resolution with a majority of the residents of this area. We know it's still not ideal to have to build a fence there, but it is incumbent upon Cox to protect our assets, to protect your services. Unfortunately, the world that we live in today, critical infrastructure is frequently a target, and we want to make sure that we're able to continue to serve you, your residents, your businesses, and that in case of an emergency, they are able to reach any public safety that they need to. So again, we appreciate your time. We appreciate the opportunity to meet with the residents, to come to an agreement on something that was very controversial in the beginning. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if there's anything that I can't answer, Dawn may be able to, but I just wanted to express my appreciation.
Thank you. At this time, any questions for the applicant? Member McBride?
I'd just first like to thank Cox Communications and the steps they have taken. You know, it shows, you know, at first it was a little lackluster response we got from Cox in the first meeting since no one showed up. I understand why. I understand illnesses and all that, but it didn't appease any of the people that were here to, you know, object to it. And then you did step forward last time. You have made concessions to it. And I understand your concerns, and I very much appreciate what you've done so far with this.
Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? All right, well, thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it. So at this time, then, I will open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to come and speak to this agenda item? And just please state your name and address for the record.
Barry Morris, 1379 East Colorado Loop, Casa Grande. I want to thank the commission for having us come back here again today with a solution. Thank Jim for taking the time out to allow for the meeting prior to this one with Cox Communication that I feel was very favorable in both parties' parts. We agreed that we would have one color scheme. I did come up with a swatch I'd like to hand to you. And again, thank you very much. And I want to thank Cox for bending over to have an agreement with us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. While they, anybody else from the public? I thought that I'd start that process since I didn't think there was going to be anybody else here. Thank you guys for being here this evening. With nobody else from the public, I will close the public portion and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve DSA-20-00-170 for fence around Cox Communications.
Oop, is there we'll do a correction on it. 00142.
Was it one now?
That's the
Okay.
next agenda item. That's all right.
Okay. Yeah, on here it's 170. Oh, no, it's good, that's got that wrong. Okay,
Second the motion.
I apologize. DSA-20-00142, build a fence around Cox Communication with all the conditions listed here by the city staff.
So I have a motion by Member Dugan for the conditional use permit and associated resolution with technical modifications and conditions. I have a second by Member Schneider. Any other discussion?
I'm just, along with the members of the homeowners association, I'm pleased to see government functioning the way it's supposed to. It's a positive result all the way around.
Thank you, Member Schneider. With no other discussion, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Benedict?
And thank you to Jim for working through with all of those groups, and I vote aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Aye.
Vice Chairman McBride?
Yes?
And Chairman Miller?
Yes. Motion approved. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to new business. Next, we have a public hearing and consideration requested by Scott Communities for approval of a major amendment to the PAD. DSA 20-00170.
So this is a request pertaining to the Arroyo Grande Planned Area Development Zone District. I just wanted to provide a quick overview of what that zone district entails. It primarily includes single-family residential lots, as you can see on the screen. However, there is a portion towards the east part of that PAD zone district for future multifamily use as well as future commercial. The request tonight pertains to just the single-family lots within the Arroyo Grande PAD. As you see, it's generally bound by Treckle to the west and McCartney Road on the south. Another brief background about this is that there's 2 home builders that currently are submitting plans for home construction within this neighborhood. There's Hillstone Homes, who own the lots reflected in yellow towards the western part of the site, and then Scott Communities, who have ownership of the remaining lots identified in green. This PAD amendment will actually affect all of the single-family residential lots, or whichever lots Scott Community ultimately has control of. And I'll discuss exactly what the amendment entails. So 14 home plans have been approved for Scott Communities to apply on any of the lots within Arroyo Grande. 3 of these plans, however, can only fit on 17% of the total lots, due to the particular length of these homes and due to the existing building setbacks and lot coverage that are stated within the Arroyo Grande PAD guide. So currently, when you look at the Arroyo Grande development standards, there's a setback from the front property line for front living areas or side load garages of 15 feet. Front-loaded garages are allowed to be no closer than 20 feet, but again, side-loaded garages can be 15. Rear yard setbacks are 20 feet unless the lot is along a perimeter identified in the top right of the screen. In that case, those lots are subject to a 25-foot setback. And then it's stated in the PAD that the maximum lot coverage is 50%. And these highlighted items are what the amendment pertains to help accommodate 3 of these homes. So in plan number 4414, it would fit on most of the lots. However, if the homeowner chose to add the option where either extended living area or extended master bedroom or side load garage was provided, it would create a problem where it couldn't comply with either the front setback if it was scooted up to meet the 20-foot rear, and so that would create an issue on most of the lots. And here's just a side profile to where you can see the length of the house. On Plan 5011, there's another issue where it has a side load garage, which would by today's standards, require a minimum of a 15-foot setback. However, in order to meet that 15-foot front setback, it would create a problem in the backyard. So if they were to scoot the home forward to comply with the rear setbacks, then it would create a problem with the front yard. So that's why the request is specific to tailor these development standards to help accommodate these houses. With plan number 5012, there's also an issue where it can't be brought any closer to the front property line because it's a front load garage, and we insist on a minimum of a 20-foot setback for a front load garage, so it's ensured that the driveway is of adequate depth. However, there's an issue with the rear setback. It results in a 15-foot setback, and Scott Communities is asking for a reduction from 20 feet to 15, and on the PAD perimeter lots to go from 25 feet to 20. I should note that the PAD perimeter lots are typically longer, So they would be able to fit on the PAD perimeter lots with a 20-foot setback versus a 25-foot setback. This particular house also poses a lot coverage challenge on the majority of the lots because it comes in at over 50%, where 50% is the maximum lot coverage currently allowed. So specifically what's being requested is to modify the front setback from 15 feet to 10 feet. And again, I want to iterate that that's just for either side load garages or living area. It wouldn't affect the front setback for front loaded garages. And then the proposal is to revise the rear yard and PAD perimeter setbacks from 20 to 15 feet and from 25 to 20 feet respectively. And then the lot coverage is proposed to be modified from 50% to a maximum of 51%. In evaluating this request, staff ultimately was in agreement with the proposal so long as it meets basically 3 stipulations. And I do want to clarify that the staff report is written in a way where it frames it as 2, but I've since modified it to break it up to where it's a little bit more understandable, but it doesn't really add new content. Basically, the 3 stipulations would be that the revision to the minimum front yard setback from 15 feet to 10 feet shall be limited to side load garages and living areas only. Front load garages shall have a minimum setback of 20. And the rear setback from 20 feet to 15 feet and the perimeter setback from 25 to 20 to any portion of the structure is limited to lots with these specific issues, the 4414, 5011, 5012. And then the revision to the maximum lot coverage from 50 to 51% is limited to lots with plan number 5012. This way, it's not a blanket development standard revision for any and all homes. It's just specifically for these 3 plans that have demonstrated to pose a challenge. And the intent of these stipulations is to apply to just these 3 homes. When evaluating amendments to a planned area development, there's 2 types of an amendment. There's a type that just goes to Planning Commission, and that's when you're changing a development standard such as this. And then there's a type of an amendment that would require council approval. This type of amendment does not need to go to City Council because the result of the change does not increase the density. It does not decrease the open space for the community. It doesn't change a roadway circulation pattern. So this is something that Planning Commission can consider. There's a number of criteria that have to be evaluated, and I just want to talk about the 2 highlighted items. The rest are more thoroughly discussed in the staff report. But with regard to the relationship of the plan elements to conditions both on and off the property, there really is not a significant impact to the surrounding PAD by modifying the setbacks for 3 plans, because there's a total of 14 plans by Scott Communities and then 5 additional plans approved by Hillstone. So this house probably will not be replicated on a lot of lots to create, very small front and rear yards. Also, the surrounding PAD zones, such as Villago and Arroyo Vista and McCartney Center, do not have a PAD perimeter setback. So this is a little bit unique. Not to mention that there's a pretty substantially wide tract for landscaping between the lots on Treckle that back onto Treckle and Treckle Road, as well as the lots that back onto McCartney. Also, the other criteria that I want to talk about with regard to building location, height, and elevations, these requested amendments to the development standards does affect the massing because it will bring some living areas of homes or side-loaded garages closer to the street, and in some cases it would bring portions of the home closer to the rear property line. However, this can positively contribute to the stagger of homes that happen to be encouraged in planned area development zone districts. One of the concerns is when you have that quote-unquote cookie cutter effect and you're looking down a long street and you see a line of homes all meeting the same exact setback, this will really help vary that and stagger it, especially since we're just recommending that it be applied to these 3 particular home plans. Here's an example of one such neighborhood where there are staggered setbacks. As you can see closer to the bottom of the picture, it's a really restrictive small backyard, but then as you go further to the top of the picture, the backyard opens up. And similarly, you see a stagger of homes along the front property lines. Some are closer to the front property line than others. This met all of the public notification process that's in place in the city code. I have not received any comments as a result of the public notification efforts. Staff does recommend that Planning Commission approve this PAD amendment for Arroyo Grande, subject to these 3 conditions of approval. I do want to clarify with number 1 that it would also just apply to these 3 particular plan numbers. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions for staff? Member McBride?
I had a question. The houses that would be butted back to back, is there any restriction of the larger homes being on those which would drive the homes close to each other in the backyards?
There was not that restriction contemplated, no.
Okay. Because that's the only issue I could see could be with the people living there when they get into some situation like that, where when you step out your back door, there's a person right outside their back door.
Right. If you want to modify the condition to, or add a condition to state that, you know, could be a possibility to consider.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Member Schneider?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The staff report says that it is currently configured without this, 17% of the lots could accommodate these 3 housing plans. If we say yes, then how many lots, what's the percentage grow to?
Commissioner Snyder, I don't know. I would imagine there would still be some lots that just couldn't fit these homes, but it would probably increase that number from 17% to a much larger percentage.
Okay, I must confess, I share concerns with Vice Chair McBride's statements. I'm concerned about the swell and the precedent that we're setting for other subdivisions, other PADs. So I'll ask the applicant the same question. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Member Benedict?
Can you go back to your suggested requirements? So I guess from what you said, we need to add the language that says that number 1 only applies to those 3 plans.
Correct.
That needs to be, because that was my first question when I read over, was will you just open it up to every side-loaded garage?
Right.
I don't know how many there are, but whatever. But that's the only thing. I guess we need to pay attention and add that when we do the motion, I guess. There's an alternative.
Yeah, originally 1 and 2 were combined as one thought, and so by separating it, it inadvertently took the 3 plan numbers away from number 1, but those 3 plan numbers are meant to be included.
So if you accepted it based on conditions within the staff report, they'd still be included, not on the presentation. Any other questions for staff?
Yeah,
No?
I don't know what the problem was with 1 and 2 there, Mr. Chairman.
What's that?
I don't know what the problem was that he thought was the concern with just the two that were in the report.
Might have just been to kind of, for reading pleasure, it explained itself a little bit better, right? Like it laid out, but we
Right.
just missed the plan numbers would apply to all three conditions if it was presented that way.
Right.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none. This time then I would invite the applicant and/or their representative to come forward. Please state your name and record, or name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Chad Plain with Scott Communities. Our address is 2221 West Baseline Road, Tempe, Arizona. As Jim had stated, what we're requesting is this only affect those three plans. We do have another plan, our 4412 plan, which has a side load garage, or it could be a casita or a second master suite. That it's a smaller plan and it's not as deep, so that would fit within the current PAD requirements. And then if you put that would be at the 15 feet, and then the 4414, if this were to be approved at the 10 feet, and we're getting that stagger. To your point, your question on the rears, yes, it would bring, possibly one house or possibly two houses, depending on if they did back-to-back, bring them closer together. And we would probably still, if this did not get approved, it would still be just the 17% of because the majority of a lot of the lots in there, 80% of them back up to each other. Another note is, these three houses, we're not modeling these three houses. And typically when customers come into to a community and they walk models, that's your most popular plans that sell are your models. These three plans are not models. So although we will sell some of them, it won't be as likely as someone buying one of our model plans. That's all I have, unless you guys have any more questions.
Member Peters?
Just one question. You mentioned a smaller plan that this would apply to. That smaller plan, would that also have a side garage, a side entrance garage?
Yes, it does. That particular plan has the side garage on its standard, and it's 85 feet deep, which fits within the current setbacks,
Right.
the PAD setbacks.
Because most of these people nowadays, they have a F-150 or a Silverado or something like that. If you only got 10 feet in that driveway,
Well, what happens with, as you notice, I don't know if Jim can pull those plot plans back up, but when you have the side load garage and you pull it forward, and then you have the two cars on the other side, the driveway ends up being about 30 feet long.
Right.
Which it's longer than if they were to get just a front load two-car garage, and you got a 20-foot driveway, their truck is sticking out into the
Right.
sidewalk.
exactly.
So, it's actually 35 feet long.
Okay.
You can park two cars back to back and still not be in the sidewalk
Okay.
in that situation.
Thank you.
Member Schneider?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, my question had to do with if it's only 17% of the lots can accommodate those three housing plans that we're talking about, and we grant you the change, how many would you expect, ballpark, are going to perhaps choose that and develop like that? I'm appreciative of the fact that you say, well, we're not modeling it, so it won't be as attractive, but people choose for various reasons,
Right.
not all having to do with modeling.
Right. Well, I can tell, that's a tough question to ask. We have two different communities currently right now where we're building The 4414, the 5011 and 5012 are brand-new plans. We've never built them before. This is, Arroyo Grande will be the first time that we've built them, so we don't have any history with those. But the two communities where we're building the 4414, one community, that option is selected 10% of the time. Another community, it's selected 50% of the time. So
15,
50.
5-0.
Right, and that option, like the single-car garage itself, that's a $16,000 option to the buyer. If they want to do it as a casita, that's a $25,000 option. So it's a very expensive option to add that square footage, either garage or livable, to the front of the home. So that, you know, will sway people one way or the other if they can afford it. So based off of that, the two communities that we're currently building in, I would say 30% of the people that buy a 4414 will select that option.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Member McBride.
Go back to my original question. I guess do it a different way. Would your company be amiable to offsetting the houses by that not putting them butt to butt on the larger houses? You know, you would have to just plan out, you couldn't sell lots directly behind each other that had that.
Sell that particular plan back to back.
Yeah, so that way you wouldn't be shoving the bigger houses against the bigger houses.
That would be something we could be open to.
Okay, if something you can deal with, something we can definitely get into it then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I have a quick question.
Yes.
You'd mentioned that you have a smaller, the smaller size plan, and giving these different offsets, just from a pure inquisitory, would it allow you the opportunity, if we just left it as presented, to move that one forward to allow somebody to have a bigger or smaller backyard? Correct? If you said, hey, on a smaller plan, I can move it to 15 feet or 10 feet, 10-foot setback, and that would just give me either a 25-foot in the backyard or a 30-foot in the backyard.
Right. We only have two plans that have that side load situation that are really affected by this.
Mm-hmm.
We have a two-story plan that has a side load garage, but since it's a two-story, it's not as deep to begin with, so the backyard is going to be very big. But the 4412 and the 4414 are very similar. The 4412 is the plan that I'm referring to as the smaller plan.
Mm-hmm.
It has the standard side load garage and it's 85 feet deep. The 4414, the single car side load garage is an option, which it's only 80 feet deep when it's standard, but when you add the garage or casita, then it ends up being 90 feet. So to answer your question, yeah, we could do that with the 4412, pull it up to the 10-foot, give that buyer a bigger backyard
Okay.
as well.
I was just
Currently-
thinking, I was thinking about it from the staff's presentation in regards to offsetting the fronts. If you opened it up to additional floor plans. I agree, but I'm now expanding that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we
Because
currently,
my thought is, right, if we said, hey, if we expanded it to another model, whatever that is, right? If
Right.
you have one more, maybe another one falls in there that we're not thinking of. Now, all of a sudden, we have the ability to create an offsetting, hey, I got a bigger backyard as an option, or I want a smaller backyard because I'd rather have the front area for more driveway space. I have, you could actually create more depth or more dimensions in the street line by just limiting it to 3, because these 3 may not even be on the same street
right,
ever, right? I mean, we don't know what people are going to buy.
correct.
And by opening that up and creating more lot opportunities, which is why I like the way that it was presented in in the PowerPoint rather than in the staff report.
Right.
It just gives us more options.
And just to reiterate Jim's point, you know, the recommendation to change the 3 plans would really change the street scheme as you drive down the street.
That's why I just want to add to that.
Right.
That's why I want more plans to be able to do that, personally.
Right, and keep in mind, we have, you know, 12 more plans, or I'm sorry, 11 more plans that we're offering out there too, so.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions for staff? Or, I mean, for the applicant. You're not staff, the applicant. All right, well, thank you. I appreciate you being here. I'm just giving her a second to wipe this down, and then I'll open up for the public. In the meantime,
Mr.
anybody
Chair,
from-
maybe while she's doing that, one of the reasons why staff separated the first condition from the staff report and made it 1 and 2 was actually to clarify the fact that this 10-foot front yard setback would not apply to front-loaded garages. To Commissioner Peters' comment, we wanted to make sure that front-loaded garages would still have a 20-foot setback to be able to accommodate the parking of the vehicle in the driveway. So it was really a clarification, but we inadvertently did open it up to any side-loaded garage or living area forward. From a design perspective, you know, we do discuss that option with other developers and from a planning perspective, we really don't have much of a concern with that. Our real concern happens to be with the driveway depth. That's kind of really critical, but allowing side load garages and living areas to be moved forward towards the sidewalk is not a bad design option from staff's perspective, just so you know.
So we could expand it to more. Great. Thank you. With that, I'll open it up to the public. Anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing nobody jump forward, don't come rushing all at once. We will close the public portion and bring it back to the commission. Any further discussion or desires?
We probably, if we're going to make an amendment, we should combine an amendment. As I see, there's more than one.
We have we've had lots of very,
Instead of
complicated
making an amendment,
conversation.
voting on this amendment and that amendment to try and get things, if anyone would like to do that.
Before you
To
do
try and make
So
it less confusing.
maybe before you do that, we have written an amendment that related to the back-to-back
Okay.
shorter rear yards. Would you like us to read that amendment to you?
Yes, please.
James?
Okay, so Paul suggests, and it's written well, plans with 15 feet rear yard setbacks shall not be constructed back-to-back.
that seems
Sounds very good.
extremely in-depth
Yes.
and well thought out.
To the point.
I tell you. Enlightening that was.
And if you'd like to add something to that amendment,
Well, first we need a motion.
Well, so
Well,
before the
no,
motion's made though, because
to make one amendment.
yeah, I think that everybody kind of has that, that's a good idea. Member Benedict, yeah.
So clarify for me, Mr. Chairman, your preference, the 3 recommendations, the 3 requirements is you prefer because it allows for your idea of moving that smaller side load garage forward.
I like the idea of adding the flexibility for the home purchaser to decide if they wanted to move their home forward or backwards on the lot, assuming that they present that as an option. Scott Communities could say, no, we don't present that as an option. That's entirely up to them.
Yeah. And I guess where I was going with that is listening to staff and their discussion about what that does from a planner's perspective. I've changed my mind. I poo-pooed you to start with.
I saw that.
And I think I've changed my mind and I've come around to your way there.
Right.
So it might be pretty easy just to add that.
To the recommendations
that verbiage
listed on the
as a
screen.
Recommendation, does that take care of the other concerns that commissioners had?
I think we'll just, if we took the three that are listed, if staff can confirm this, as it's listed on our screen currently, they can move any side load or living areas forward to that 10-foot on any of their plans, because we didn't specify them. And so if we adopted it as is on our screens and added the verbiage you just provided us as a fourth condition, then that would meet the conversation from this evening, correct?
It's true that, as written on the screen, the 10-foot front yard setback could apply to any model having a side load garage or a living area forward. And also, you could add the fourth condition regarding no back-to-back 15-foot rear yard setbacks.
Can I just say so moved and
He said.
what he said?
So I have a motion from Member Benedict to approve DSA 2000170 with the three conditions presented, and adding a fourth of no back-to-back 15-foot setbacks to be built
I'll second
within the
that.
subdivision.
I will second
we-
that.
Can we have him read that condition just so we have it in the minutes? I don't know if she got it the first time.
I tried to write it down exactly the way he read it to me. You don't trust me?
Well, you can use that language if you want. It was just a little bit different.
Oh,
But
okay.
if you want to
That's
use
fine.
that one, that's
By all
fine.
means, reread it just to
It
confirm.
was a little bit different.
Okay.
Plans with 15-foot rear yard setbacks shall not be constructed back-to-back.
Is that the,
That's what I said.
yeah, okay.
And I seconded that.
Member McBride has seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Would you please call the roll?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Member Snyder,
Aye.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes,
Chairman Miller.
Yes. Motion approved. All right, thank you, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, public hearing and consideration of request by Thompson Thrift, major site plan, DSA 2000161.
So this is a major site plan request for Texas Roadhouse. The proposed site is just over 2 acres in size, located at the northeast corner of Hennis Road and Florence Boulevard. What you would be considering for approval this evening is the major site plan for a 7,500 square foot restaurant, 21.5 feet tall, and 169 parking spaces are proposed on the site. I just wanted to walk through briefly the conceptual plan that was previously laid out for this block and how Texas Roadhouse ultimately fits in with that conceptual layout. So Best Western, as you know, is located to the north. And originally, on the concept plan, it was for an anchor building that you see on the right. That's since been updated to reflect the Best Western Hotel. And then similarly, the proposed Texas Roadhouse site was identified on the concept plan as a pad site with the building right in the middle of that parcel. But it's proposed now to just basically slightly shift to the west, which does help bring the building a little closer to that road, which we encourage. Here's a closer up view to show you the layout of the building with relation to the surrounding parking. When reviewing major site plans, there are a number of criteria that have to be addressed, and the staff report does go into those criteria in greater detail. But I want to talk about the two highlighted items. The first being the adequacy of the plan with respect to land use. So one of the things that functions really well with the site is the fact that there's existing cross-access going from west to east that will help as future development occurs between Texas Roadhouse and Best Western and the existing Tractor Supply retail store further to the east. There's also a proposed drive access onto Florence that has been spaced far enough from Hennis to alleviate some concerns with regard to driveway spacing from major intersections. There does need to be a cross easement referenced on the site development permit, however. But what the advantage of that is that driveway not only serves the proposed Texas Roadhouse, but will help accommodate future development and consolidate the number of driveways on the site. The other criteria I want to talk about is the impact on existing and anticipated traffic and parking conditions. So there was a traffic impact analysis performed by Green Light Traffic Engineering, and it was reviewed by our city traffic engineer, Dwayne Itel, who found it acceptable. One of the takeaways from that traffic impact analysis is that there is to be a right turn lane provided for the driveway coming off of Florence, and it will be a full turn movement. There's also a right-in, right-out condition to access Hennis Road. It's right-in, right-out at the moment due to an existing median. However, there is a full turn movement further north of Best Western, that customers and employees of this business can access through a cross-access easement through Best Western. Regarding the public notification process, this met what is required by code. Although staff did receive a lot of inquiries about Texas Roadhouse, it really wasn't generated as a result of this specific public notice. But in general, it was all favorable. Staff recommends approval of the major site plan for Texas Roadhouse, subject to the following conditions, and these conditions are reflected in your staff report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for staff? Member Snyder? Switch up the order this time.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. James, I have to say that with regard to access off of Florence Boulevard, first of all, my question was, are we looking at a quasi-deceleration lane for eastbound traffic, or westbound traffic rather, on Florence Boulevard to access that driveway?
There will be a right turn lane, yes.
So it's a carve out of the property to allow for a
Correct.
right-in lane. Secondly, do I understand correctly that instead of coming off of Florence Boulevard, it's a right-in, right-out only? It is a full access driveway?
Correct for the time being, with the fact, I don't know what the future holds, but I'm saying that with what's proposed, they are showing a two-way left turn condition with that center lane continuing, so that cars can have full turn movement there at that driveway.
In and out.
I have to say, that bothers me, because you've got traffic coming off of Hennis. You've got traffic coming out of the medical centers over there, all those medical offices. You've got traffic headed towards the interstate, all of it eastbound, and you're going to try and blend more eastbound traffic from that driveway? That's pretty close to that intersection. That's a problem.
So I do, fortunately, Terry McKeon is on the line. He can probably weigh in to some of those thoughts in response to your concern.
Somebody should.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hey, Terry, you there?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. There's an existing two-way right turn lane, I believe, at that access off of Florence. With that being the case, we're not terribly opposed to the proposed access at this time. As James mentioned, in the future, we don't know what that might bring. I think that we'll see a number of these full access movements to various businesses coming to an end at some point in the future. But at this point, based on the TIA, we're comfortable with the proposed access both on Hennis and on Florence.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just as a follow-up, and it really isn't, I guess, a question, but I would like to point out that twice now, once in the instance of a development at the corner of Pennell and Cottonwood, we said, well, okay, we're going to allow this knowing full well that something bad's going to happen, and so then we'll stop it. And that's kind of what I'm hearing here, is rather than looking really forward, we're just going to wait and see what happens.
So you're concerned that people will not be safe drivers?
I'm always concerned that people are not always safe drivers.
Member Dugan.
To respond to that, coming out of the hospital, you can make a left or right-hand turn, and there's hardly any wrecks there. So there's two driveways coming out of the hospital, and then the medical center that's right to the east of that, they can go east either direction, and it seems that is working real well. There don't seem to be a problem there.
But there's a light there.
No, there isn't a light there. There isn't a light there. There's a light down further. There's a major light coming across from Walmart, but those two,
There's two additional
coming out of the
accesses.
hospital and coming out of that medical office, there's no light there, and there's hardly any wrecks there that I've known of. I don't know, the traffic study guy could tell if there's wrecks, so I don't think it'd be a problem here either. That's my thought. Just because the hospital's a pretty busy place, you know.
Any other questions for staff?
Nope.
No? Awesome. At this time then, would the applicant and/or their representative, if present, like to come forward and speak to this agenda item?
Andy Call, Thompson Thrift, 1834 East Oregon Avenue, Phoenix, 85016. No real comments. I think I appreciate Jim and all his help and staff's help to shepherd us to this point, and presentation was great, so I'm here to answer any questions, but otherwise, appreciate all staff's help. Thank you.
I wouldn't leave there yet. You got questions coming. Stay there. Member Dugan.
Yeah, I got one question now. Are you sure you're building this thing big enough? You know, I know this is your average, and Chili's just right down the road, and they built that thing so small, they wish they would have doubled the size of the thing. And that's a very popular restaurant. I just want to make sure that you figured this thing right, and it's not built big enough. I just know what your thoughts on that.
He likes to eat steak. That's it.
Hey, I love steak and I love those peanuts. I was about to bring some peanuts today, but I don't know if the cleanup staff would
You should have.
appreciate
I'm
it.
eating peanuts up here, by the way.
There you go.
See me popping
There you go,
some.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, they believe that's the right size, and you know, hopefully it's as busy as they hope it is. And but yeah.
We're real happy that you're coming.
Thank you.
We're really looking forward to it. Okay.
Thank you. We are too.
Hey, we haven't voted yet. Any other questions for the applicant? David? No? All right. Well, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I thought for sure you'd have a question, David. At this time, I'd,
You really like me to respond to that?
I'm just, at this time, I'd like to open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to speak to this? You're hiding over there in the corner. Forgot about you for a moment there, John.
Well, I'm trying to limit myself tonight because it's such a long agenda. John McGuire, 1748 North St. Francis Place. Obviously, as Mr. Gagliardi already said, and you've all denoted, public support for this business coming into town is more than overdue as far as the input I get. That said, it's one of the times I actually do agree with Commissioner Snyder that I'm not a fan of people making two-lane turns in and out on Florence Boulevard when there's a difference slightly between the Filibertos at Cottonwood and Pinal and this, because the speed limit at Cottonwood and Pinal is A, 35 on the west side of Pinal, and there's such traffic back up there all the time that the speed is quite different. And even if we do have a collision there, I'm not as concerned that the injury factor would be as great. Here, the speed limit is quite high. I'm not a fan of the people coming out of Cracker Barrel and that whole stretch. That said, I understand where Mr. McKeon's going, I believe. The eventual hope, I think, in an initial study is going to start next year, as I understand it, to maybe medianize much of Florence Boulevard. And I think that's what he's hinting at. Whether that happens 5 years from now or 5 decades from now, still unknown. But that's kind of the idea, I think, that's being talked about. Clearly, I'm in support of the project. Either way, I wouldn't mind it. Oh, I did have one question. There's an existing right turn lane there only. Are they going to need to extend that already? Are they going to extend that, or further to the east, or just going to use the one that's already there? That's
we would create a new one, but
well, because there's already a right turn lane from westbound Florence to northbound Hennis. So
it would be separate because we do not create continuous turn lanes. It creates traffic hazards.
So what you're saying is that the driveway is going to be further east from where the existing lane ends now. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay, that's perfect then.
I don't know for
Mr.
sure.
Chairman?
Oh, our traffic guy's on, and as I'm looking at the picture, I think I'm wrong. Go for it.
To clarify that, if I may, the existing right turn lane that basically is continuous fronting that property will be delineated. There will be striping and goring to turn it into an abbreviated turn lane, if you will. So rather than one long continuous one, we'll just restripe it to accommodate those movements more appropriately. And there's no need to add additional turn lane. What you see out there existing currently will remain. It'll just be restriped.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. McKeon. But so in essence, it's going to be very similar to what we see eastbound on Florence, west of Arizola now, where there's 2 right turn lanes into the various shopping center and then Arizola itself that nobody pays attention to and drives straight through all day long. Which I don't have a big problem with it. I think the traffic can handle it here, but I just wanted to make sure I understood it because people ask. But overall, I'm in very much support. I know my 3 minutes is up and you've got a long agenda, so thank you very much.
Thanks. All right, anybody else from the public? Seeing nobody, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Member Schneider.
despite my misgivings about access off of Florence Boulevard, I move that the Planning Commission approve the major site plan DSA 20001161 with the conditions as stated by staff.
Second.
So I have a motion from Member Schneider, second from Member Benedict. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Benedict?
Aye.
Member Strata?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Aye.
Vice Chairman McBride?
Yes.
And Chairman Miller?
Yes. Motion approved. Congratulations. Good luck on your next steps.
Leave menus with us.
Next time we want samples. No. Leave menus.
Them rolls, right? Yeah.
Oh, boy. All right. Next, public hearing and consideration request by LGI Homes. We have 2 agenda items, DSA 2000181 for a housing product and DSA 2000182 conditional use permit for model home complex.
So LGI Homes is a relatively new home builder to the Casa Grande area. You may recall a planning commission meeting probably a year or so ago where they were in front of you requesting similar approval in Ghost Hollow Estates. And they've performed really well there, and they're almost built out. And so now they have acquired some lots within the Mission Ranch neighborhood, and they're requesting 2 application approvals, as you had introduced this item. The housing product to accommodate design review for 6 home plans. Each will have 3 elevation styles and multiple color schemes. And then their second application is for a model home complex, otherwise known as their information sales center, which will also include an off-street parking area. A brief overview of Mission Ranch is a lot of people know it as the area where there used to be 3 houses that were since removed just on the east side of Peart, north of Rodeo. There was a portion of it that was improved with roads. However, there's a great portion of the subdivision on the other side of the Arroyo that has been platted but yet to be approved, or yet to be improved, I should say. LGI has acquired 153 of the 344 lots, so all the lots between Peart and the Arroyo, with the intent to construct single-family homes, and they range from just shy of 1,300 square feet to just shy of 2,500 square feet. The lots within Mission Ranch where LGI are proposing to build range between 55, 60, and 65 feet wide, and they range between 6,300 to 8,000 square feet in area. The model home complex that's proposed, it's a 2-lot model home complex right at the corner of the entrance into the subdivision at Grisham and Agave. In reviewing housing product submittals, staff considers the residential design standards and any additional or modified standards set forth in the PAD guide itself. In this case, Mission Ranch is purely subject to the 2003 residential design standards. And the goal of these design standards is to provide architectural diversity and creativity to the homes. And these are the various, this is an excerpt of the various home plans that they are proposing. There's 5 single-story plans and 1 2-story plan. This gives you an idea of the 3 elevation styles that apply to each of the home plans. And in evaluating the criteria found within the PAD residential design standards, they are meeting all of the requirements, particularly with regard to providing a plan with a side-load garage, with no plan with the garage extending past the living area more than 10 feet, etc. We find that it meets, if not exceeds, all of the criteria. One of the concerns that the staff report talks about, and that I wanted to discuss with you briefly, is the fact that the portion of the Mission Ranch plat that has not been improved also does not have financial security on file. So typically, either all of the improvements associated with a recorded plat have to be installed and accepted, or otherwise all improvements have to be financially secured prior to certificate of occupancy. So in this case, there is a pending development agreement that's being reviewed to go ahead and allow home construction on the western portion of Mission Ranch. Otherwise, the alternative would be to provide financial security for everything. Another concern is that there's some landscape and drainage tracts that have to be improved or otherwise financially secured prior to certificate of occupancy for any home. As you drive by that site, though, you'll notice that there is already activity out there. They are working towards cleaning those areas up. Any areas of fencing that need repaired are allowed to occur in stages. I have a typo on there in states, but in stages, so long as the portion of the fence abutting a single-family home is reconstituted at that time prior to the final inspection for the home. And I briefly went over the housing product already, but essentially they are meeting all of what's required. They're also including 3 landscape packages. I should note that the housing models themselves range between 35, 40, and 45 feet. With regard to the model home complex, the conditional use permit that's required for such, they're planning to build just one house, which will consist of their information center. An interesting thing to note about LGI is this home for the information center is not replicated throughout the subdivision. This will be the only house of its style. The corner lot will consist of the off-street parking area to accommodate parking for this information sales center. And when reviewing conditional use permits for model home complexes, it's subject to these criteria that the staff report dives into further. However, for model home complexes, the conditions that result from it tend to be the same. It just helps ensure that at the end of the life of the model home complex, it's reverted into a functioning single-family home. Any signage associated with it is removed, etc. The public notification efforts met the city code requirements, and I have not received any comments with regard to that public notification effort. So staff does recommend, there's 2 applications to consider this evening, but our first is that we recommend approval of the housing project for LGI Homes for the 153 lots, subject to the following conditions of approval, which have been included in your staff report. And we also recommend that commission approve the conditional use permit for the model home complex and its associated resolution, subject to the specific conditional use permit resolution conditions that are in your staff report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
A lot of conditions on these ones. 9 and 11 conditions. Member McBride.
I guess I have a fairly simple one. They're going to build a house that's not going to be in the project. I mean, there isn't one. So are we approving that house along with the other houses?
As a housing product.
Is a housing product?
Commissioner McBride, correct. It is included on the lineup of housing product.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to
The
make
same
sure
thing
that-
was done for Ghost Hollow. All that means is if their intent is just to build one, they can build one. But there's that option in the future should their plans change, it's been approved so it could be replicated throughout.
If somebody walked in and said, I want this one,
They
they
could do
could in
That's
theory.
that's not how LGI operates business-wise, but in theory, should they change that practice, it would be on file as approved with the city for them to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure this house was approved to be
Correct.
on the property. Thank you.
Oh, good. That's our most expensive model. Member Benedict.
I apologize. Can you describe again what the requirement for the wall, repairing of the walls? And I apologize, I was thinking about other things, actually this, but.
Is your microphone on?
So the requirement basically, instead of a situation where we say all of the walls have to be repaired before any permits, the intent of the condition is that the portion of the wall that needs to be repaired can be repaired in association with the lot that's being built on that's abutting that wall, so long as that portion of the wall's done prior to the certificate of occupancy.
Okay, so it's only that section that relates to the house that's being built.
One lot at a time.
One lot, yeah. So
In-
all the rest of the fence could be falling down, but that part has to be repaired.
And in practice, usually it's done
Well, yeah.
in greater swaths than that.
Sure.
But this helps ensure that along one street that's not going to be built on for 6 months, it doesn't have to be done, until there's permits associated with that block being reviewed.
Good, thank you.
The only question that I have is in regards to the financial security of improvements discussed in the beginning, and we had approved earlier bonding, and you could do it in sections and segments to alleviate builders from having to do that for an entire project.
So, Mr. Chair, let me address that. So that is correct. We did modify our financial security requirements in the city code to allow developments like this to be secured in phases. So this is a really interesting subdivision. It's kind of an anomaly. So there was a financial security posted for the entire subdivision. I can't recall the amount, but that security has since lapsed. However, as you can see on the screen, the improvements, subdivision improvements were installed on the western half, that area of the subdivision west of the Arroyo that bifurcates the subdivision. And in fact, not only were those subdivision improvements installed, they were accepted by the city in terms of the roads and the sidewalks. So the improvements were installed and accepted on the western half. So what we're saying, though, is that we need to resecure the eastern half of the subdivision before there's any development that occurs in the eastern half. There is a development agreement that the owner of the lots has submitted to the city that essentially says that, hey, city, you'll issue permits for the lots on the western half, and we won't ask for any permits for the area on the eastern half until we resecure it. In addition, the developer is proposing a partnership on cleaning up and repairing some of the public improvements that were constructed on the western half. So it's a little complicated. It's definitely an anomaly because half of it was built, half of it was accepted, and the other half is not secured. So we're trying to work through those issues so that the city is protected and we make sure that all new homeowners, when they buy a home, have adequate subdivision infrastructure that serves their homes.
Mr. Chairman,
Member Benedict.
so to be sure I'm clear, but the western, all we're talking about though is the western side of the wash.
That's true.
Okay, and that has been, all of that infrastructure has already been accepted?
Correct.
Okay, so we're not approving anything on the other side, we're not getting into that deal that's not done yet. We're dealing with a deal that is done.
That's correct. Although the problem is that it's all one subdivision today, it's not two subdivisions, and so we have kind of a technical problem on how we issue CFOs for a subdivision where a portion of it is unsecured. So that's why the development agreement that we're considering would address that.
Didn't we accept that though? Like moving forward, we had that come in front of us a while back where we would accept partial sections.
We did, but
so if we've already accepted this, we can say, hey, look,
but they're
ready to blow and go.
That particular code amendment requires that the only time you can phase securities is within a development agreement approved by city council. And so that's the missing piece here.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense now. Now I've connected the last dot.
Tell the city council to get going.
I know, what is the city council waiting for, huh? They were all standing outside, I could have told them to approve it. When we lit the Christmas tree. Awesome. Any other questions for staff? No?
Nope.
Great. Applicant and/or representative like to come forward?
Hello there. Rob Huntley, LGI Homes, 9150 East Del Camino, Scottsdale, Arizona.
Awesome, thanks for being
Awesome.
here.
Good to see you guys again. Like Jim said, it's actually been 10 months since we were in here last, and we blew and go on Ghost Hollow, sold it out in 5 months.
Nice.
So 125 lots, and we'll have it closed in February.
Sweet.
Just under a year. Yep.
Cool. All right. Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have one.
Member Dugan.
Once these lots that you have bought, do you sell them out? Do you have an option to take care of the western part of this thing, or do you plan to do that if you sell these out?
I cannot quote what our acquisitions team is, but I know they're in discussions with some remaining lots in the back there, so.
But right now, you don't own them?
We do not, correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you guys for being here this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you much.
Being
Appreciate
patient as we work through these agenda items. All right. At this time then, I will open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Oh, yeah. Just a second. Once she finishes up there, you can come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Valerie Motika. I live actually in Eloy, 3560 North Meyer Road in Eloy. I'm pretty new to coming to these city council meetings, so just sorry about that.
Yeah, you're good.
I do wildlife rescue. I've been doing wildlife rescue in this area for the past 10 years. City of Casa Grande calls on me a lot to pick up owls and things in the area. I work with a lot of different developers in helping them relocate owls. And Richmond American, which is LGI, continually keeps falling on the map of not following the proper regulations to relocate these owls. There was an incident about 6 months ago where I dug up a dead one that was crushed in one of those burrows. There was 3 other burrows in Tamaron that have recently been disturbed with blading equipment going over and no proof that they went about it through a licensed facility. So I don't know if those owls are still buried alive in there or they've been displaced into other development areas since there's so much development going on in Casa Grande. But what I'm here to do for the wildlife is to advocate for them. And I understand development needs to happen, and I like a growing economy. But there are protocols that have been in place for a long time, 20 years at least, about relocating the owls, how it's a state and federal law. And we have a multi-billion-dollar developer coming in, and it appears that they're just blatantly disregarding that law. It's making the other developers look bad, and members of the community are calling me, and I'm trying to tell them to reach out to the city and to reach out to their HOAs, and they keep calling me because they feel like they're being ignored. So I'm sorry if I'm stepping out of place in where I'm coming up to speak about this. I'm new, and I want to advocate for the owls. I think they add to the community around here, and I think with planning and development, including them in the infrastructure can actually help our city. So, thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
And we have a public portion, so you can come and voice your opinion. So we appreciate you coming to make us aware of that.
Yeah, I only found out about those 3 other active burrows being bladed over the past week. So, and there's another property, I guess, which I'll sit and wait. I think it's item 7, where there's another burrow in danger there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to come forward? Did you want to come forward? You can if you... I'm going to bring you forward in the public portion.
Okay. Appreciate it. Obviously, you presenting here, we actually have a partnership with Burrowing Owls. So every time we go into a development, we bring them in just to ensure that we do have, if there is any Burrowing Owls. We actually have a community in Buckeye right now that's been put on hold for the same reason. So we do our due diligence before we even go in and start doing the land development. Obviously, this being a developed product, or, majority developed, our land department will go in there as well with the same partnership, Burrowing Owls, before we even start doing the wall repairs, the landscape drainage repairs, any of that stuff, so.
And I assume Burrowing Owls is a organization that
Correct.
relocates,
Yep.
not the actual Burrowing Owls.
No.
They don't
Yeah,
come in
yeah.
with us.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. It's not meant to be a debate, so, member, yeah. Go ahead, John.
No problem. John McGuire, 1748 North St. Francis Place. I just want to confirm, I was not aware that LGI and Richmond American were the same, with this issue being so touchy. I would like to confirm that they are somehow partnered up, because I was not aware that they are the same companies.
So we're getting head signals that no, they are not connected. Now, I don't know if they,
LGI has only built in Ghost Hollow Estates in the city of Casa Grande. They're not affiliated with any lots in Tamaron or any other subdivision where Richmond's currently building.
yeah. Okay. So from my understanding, they are sole and separate home building company. So, great. So with that, I would love to just make a, kind of bring it obviously to staff's, awareness. There's maybe something in there that if we can make sure that we're reaching out with LGI in regards to any Burrowing Owls in that community, because I do know that's been a hot topic, I think, especially on social media that I have seen. And they are a fun feature. Anytime I've taken my kids for walks and things like that, it's always fun to see them fluttering around in different areas. And so if we can keep them safe, that would be fantastic. With that, anybody else from the public like to speak to this agenda item? I'll have you guys connect offline. There we go. Yeah. So with that, I'm going to close the public portion, and I'm going to bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chair,
Member McBride.
I would like to make a motion to approve housing product DSA 20-00181 with LGI Homes with all of the listed conditions.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion from McBride, a second from Dugan. Any discussion? Hearing none, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Benedict?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Aye.
Vice Chairman McBride?
Yes.
And Chairman Miller?
Yes. All right, motion approved. Good luck on the next stages that you guys need so you can get moving in another community. Thank you. Or another subdivision. Oh, wait, we got another one, don't we?
Yeah.
Maybe they don't want to be here for it. That's all right. They got the housing product through. We'll find out if they get a bottle home or not.
Quick. I'd like to make another motion, Mr. Chairman.
That'd be fantastic, Member McBride.
To approve conditional use permit DSA 20-00182 with listed conditions.
Second.
So I have a motion to approve with conditions and associated resolution
Yes.
from Member McBride and a second from Member Snyder. Any discussion? Will you please call the roll?
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Benedict?
Aye.
Member Strata?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Aye.
Vice Chairman McBride?
Yes.
And Chairman Miller?
Yes. All right, motion's approved. Now you guys can, oh, they already left.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
They got better things to do.
That's right. All right. Next agenda item, public hearing and consideration request by Neil Feeser of RKAA, DSA 2000169 conditional use permit, and DSA 2000168 minor site plan.
So this project also has two applications associated with it. It's for Salad and Go. There's a conditional use permit, as that's a requirement for what's known as convenience food restaurants, or otherwise known as quick serve restaurants in properties zoned B2. And then the other request that you'd be considering is for the minor site plan associated with developing that site. So the proposed Salad and Go is on the site where there's presently the former JB's restaurant. It's located at 1322 East Florence. They're proposing to redevelop that site with a 723 square foot building. It will have 2 drive-through lanes associated with it. It's going to be primarily a drive-through facility. However, there will be a walk-up service window as well. Due to the limited square footage of the site and it primarily accommodating drive-through traffic, there's only 8 parking spaces to be provided, meeting the parking requirements of the code. Here's a closer view of the existing JB's restaurant and just an overview of how it will be redeveloped to accommodate the 2 queuing lanes for the drive-through. They're also proposing to locate the parking towards the front of the site, perpendicular to Florence Boulevard. This is an elevation view. As you can see, it's a fairly compact building, but it does have projecting awnings to shade both the vehicles on the west side of the building and the walk-up window on the east side of the building. When reviewing conditional use permits, it's subject to specific criteria, and of course, the staff report goes into that in more detail. I'm just going to talk about the 2 highlighted items. The first criteria that I want to discuss is that the site is adequate to accommodate the use. So there was a traffic statement that was provided and reviewed by the city traffic engineer. This is a smaller building than the previous building was for JB's, and so therefore there's a smaller parking demand, so it didn't actually prompt a traffic impact analysis, but the traffic statement that was provided did verify that there will be fewer trips generated by this business than by the previous restaurant business. There are adequate points of ingress and egress to Florence Boulevard and Colorado Street, which is just to the, well, it's not just to the west. There's Dunkin' Donuts in between this and Colorado Street, but it's the nearest north-south street, and there's adequate existing access easements to lead traffic to both Florence and Colorado. And they are providing landscaping along Florence and around the building to help blend the site in to the existing pad lots within that block. The proposed use is in conformance with the general plan in a number of ways. This area is designated within the community center land use designation. What that is it promotes a environment where buildings are encouraged to be brought closer to the street and to minimize the dominance or the view of parking lots and try to make vehicular activity secondary to pedestrian activity. So one of the things that will be lost with the tear down of JB's is currently the building does meet community center form, because the only thing between the building and the street is landscaping, and the parking is hidden by the building, which is what we try to strive for. It's a challenge to accommodate that for a drive-through restaurant. And so what they're proposing to do to help meet that community center form is a number of things. They're proposing to provide a walkthrough from the public sidewalk on Florence across the culvert leading to the walk-up window on the east side of the building. And they also are providing a screen wall to screen that parking area. What that does is, as you're walking along Florence, you're not seeing the vehicles as much. It helps screen that, and also sort of gives the perception that the massing of the building is being brought closer to the public street by bringing some hardscape, vertical hardscape, closer to the pedestrian environment. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit and its associated resolution for a convenience food restaurant, subject to the two conditions discussed in the staff report. One is that detached signage shall be limited to a maximum height of 15 feet and shall be of monument design. And then also, this is just kind of a standard boilerplate condition that's found in the city code regarding curbs of not less than 6 inches shall be constructed to separate drive surfaces from sidewalks, but that's fairly standard. With regard to the review of the minor site plan, typically that's just an administratively considered application. And the reason why this doesn't rise to the level of a major site plan, which would typically be coming in front of you, is because the building is such small square footage, and it's replacing a much larger building, that there's relatively little impact on the overall site. However, because a conditional use permit is needed, and a conditional use permit requires a site plan, this is really treated as a companion item for you to consider. There's actually slightly different criteria associated with a minor site plan than there is for a major site plan. It boils down to these 5 criteria that the staff report talks about in greater depth, but in reviewing those criteria, staff found that all of those matters have been addressed. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the minor site plan for Salad and Go. As far as the public notification process, it followed all of the city code requirements. And I do like to note, just as kind of a fun aside, they were the first applicant to get me their sign affidavit this month. So I appreciated that. They were on top of it. There were no comments provided as a result of the public notice. So just to recap, staff does recommend that Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit with these 2 associated conditions subject to the found within the conditional use resolution. And we also recommend that you approve the minor site plan. And there's no associated conditions with that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Member McBride.
You mentioned a screen wall up on Florence Boulevard. How tall is a screen wall?
3 feet.
3 feet, okay, so just a little pony wall. So, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Yeah, Member Peters.
The destruction of the old building, that's done on a separate permit then, correct?
There would be a demolition permit, correct?
Okay.
I have a question for staff. Never mind. I'll bring that up. Separate. It's in pertaining to this agenda item, but it's not specific to this agenda item. So we'll discuss that later. I apologize. Anybody else?
Never mind.
Never mind? Yeah, never mind. We'll keep this moving. All right. Then at this time, I will invite the applicant and/or their representative to come forward. Thank you for your patience this evening and waiting your turn. Thank you for being here.
Neil Fieser from RK Architects, 2233 East Thomas Road, Phoenix, Arizona.
And thank you for hearing our project today and considering it for the 2 agenda items. I have nothing further to discuss unless you have any questions.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? No? All right. Well, thank you for being here then.
Thank you.
Man, you guys keep this up and not asking any questions, the applicants are going to stop coming again.
Well, we see what happens when that happens. We don't want that.
I'm teasing you. I'm teasing. All right. With that, I'll open it up to the public. Anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing nobody, I will close the public portion and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, what is it here? Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve DSA-20-001669 for a convenience food quick serve restaurant with the staff recommendations.
So I have a motion from Member Dugan for the approval of the conditional use permit and the associated resolution. And I have a second from Member Estrada. Any discussion? Hearing none, we call the roll.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Benedict?
Yes.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Aye.
Vice Chairman McBride?
Yes.
And Chairman Miller?
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, I move to approve DSA-19-00168, a minor, for the minor site plan with the staff recommendations.
Second.
So I have a motion for DSA 20-00168 by Member Dugan and a second by Member Benedict. Any discussion? Will you please call the roll?
Yes. Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Benedict?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Aye.
Vice Chairman McBride?
Yes.
And Chairman Miller?
Yes. All right, motion approved. Congratulations.
What's that?
So at this time, if everybody's all right, I would like to make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Second.
All right. We'll be back in 5. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Slap.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Next agenda item. Public hearing and consideration request by, wow.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. Cool Mantel and affiliates. We have DSA 2000143 major site plan and DSA 2000144 comprehensive sign plan. Well, that's one. It's a little bit confused on the first presentation we had up, and I was like, now it all makes sense. Oh, we took a break right before your agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I just wanted to give you sneak previews is all.
There you go. I appreciate that. We kind of know what's coming. You kind of
Right,
baited us a
exactly.
little bit with the next agenda item
Exactly.
as well there.
Just little
so.
teasers.
Nice.
This is a major site plan request as well as a comprehensive sign plan request for a new proposed quick trip located at the southwest corner of Florence Boulevard and Camino Mercado. Quick Trip was actually in front of you back, I believe, in 2008 or so. The staff report discusses the exact time frame with a similar proposal. They didn't develop at that time, but they are back again with the request for a just shy of 5,000 square foot quick trip convenience store. The site would also include a 9,200 square foot fueling canopy with 48 parking spaces proposed. The two requests that you're going to be considering are the major site plan, which just ensures conformance with the city code and the P&Z zoning requirements, as well as consideration of a comprehensive sign plan to approve for proposed signage with that site, since this particular P&Z does not have specific sign criteria, but it's subject to a sign plan. The major site plan is shown here on the screen. As you see, the building is pushed relatively to the south of Florence Boulevard. There are two access points proposed, one off of Florence Boulevard and one off of Camino Mercado, and I have an excerpt of their elevations. As you see, it's four-sided architecture. When reviewing the major site plan, there's a list of criteria that have to be evaluated, and the staff report talks about it at greater length, but I'm just going to focus on these two highlighted items. The first criteria is the conformance to the city's zoning ordinance. So this property is located within a planned area development zone known as the Casa Grande Mercado Addition. I do want to point out that it is true that it divides Siegel Suites in half. It's in two different zone districts. Just if you're staring at the screen, that's not an error. But the allowed uses for this PAD is retail and service. So it's a little bit ambiguous, but we've interpreted it to allow for convenience stores and gas stations. The development standards associated with this PAD require buildings to not exceed a maximum height of 26 feet, and that complies with what they're proposing. The fuel store will be, or the convenience store rather, will have a height of 20 feet, and the canopy will be 22 feet. There's also a requirement for setbacks from the PAD perimeter, so that would apply to the north boundary as well as to the east boundary. The building can't be any closer in linear feet to the perimeter as the height of the building, and it's well meeting those minimum setbacks. No other setback information is provided, so essentially it just gets evaluated with the major site plan to ensure that the site functions. The other criteria that I want to talk about is pedestrian and vehicular ingress and egress. As I mentioned on the previous slide, they are proposing 2 points of access. Both will have dedicated right turn lanes spaced adequately from that intersection. In order to accommodate adequate spacing, as you notice, the driveway coming into the site from Florence Boulevard is a little bit offset from the bulk of the property. That is to allow future development to the west and also moves the driveway as far from the intersection as practical so that it's not crowded there at that corner. They are proposing direct pedestrian access from Camino Mercado. There'll be a walkway coming from that sidewalk leading to the building. There is a requirement for right-of-way dedication for Florence Boulevard, so that there's a total half street of 70 feet to meet our small area transportation study requirements for major arterial roads. We are requesting that at the site development permit stage, there's information provided documenting a recorded easement for 2 things. One, that shared access onto Florence from the adjacent property. And then also for the public sidewalk along Camino Mercado. In order to accommodate the placement of that right turn lane, there's portions of that public sidewalk that actually traverse onto the private property. So we're asking for a public access easement, as that will be a public sidewalk. Staff recommends that Planning Commission approve this major site plan with the following 3 conditions that's been covered in the staff report and in tonight's presentation. The other application that staff is going to be covering is for the comprehensive sign plan. Now, the purpose for this sign plan, because this isn't something that often gets discussed in front of Planning Commission, is that PAD zoned properties are subject to their own sign rules, and they're not necessarily that which is found in the city sign code. So at the present, there isn't any hard standard that says how much signage this property is to get. The Casa Grande Mercado Edition PAD does allow for a comprehensive sign plan to be considered by Planning Commission. When looking at a customized sign plan proposed for a building, our policy is that they're allowed to have some flexibility in terms of its placement. If they want to have additional wall signage than what would normally be allowed, we can consider that. But it should be relatively in line with what would ordinarily be required by the city sign code. So the most applicable zone district where there are known sign rules for is the B2 general business. So whereas maybe they're allowed more wall signage, we would have them come down with the amount of sign area or height that would normally be associated with their detached signage, or vice versa. In this case, their sign plan is showing detail for the placement of 8 signs. 5 are wall signs on the building, and then 2 signs are on the fuel canopy, and then there's 1 freestanding sign. They provided a sign matrix to show how it compares with the allowed signage if this were a B2 zone district. The total square footage that they're proposing for their wall signage adds up to 179 square feet, whereas the total square footage allowed would be 184. So this actually falls under what would ordinarily be allowed with the B2 zone. So it's supportable. And then as far as the freestanding signage goes, they would be allowed in the B2 zone a freestanding sign of 200 square feet to be as high as 30 feet tall. They're actually proposing a monument sign of basically 9 feet 9 inches at 91 square feet. So it's well in compliance with the B2 standards if that happened to apply to this area. This does allow some flexibility in that signage can be placed on both the east and west elevations. Sometimes with the B2, there's some restrictions with what elevations of the building can have signage if it's not parallel to a street. So we're flexible with a comprehensive sign plan to allow signage to go on multiple elevations, regardless if it's parallel to a street. So staff does recommend that Planning Commission approve this comprehensive sign plan. Regarding the public notification, it did meet all of the code requirements. Staff has not received any inquiries or comments on the proposed development as a result of the notification efforts. So I recommend that Planning Commission approve the major site plan with the conditions discussed. And I also recommend that Planning Commission approve the comprehensive sign plan. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? Go ahead. I know, sorry. Member McBride.
This is always going back to the same subject, it seems like. The ingress and egress, you were on the right picture right there before, maybe that one will do it better. Off Florence Boulevard. It's right in, right out, left in, left out. It's free-flowing.
No.
I'm trying to understand, I'm looking at the arrows there, and the way the sidewalk looks, it doesn't let you turn right out. You know, it's just kind of confusing by the drawing to me. Is there a right in, right out only?
Commissioner McBride, so both of the driveways will allow full turn movement.
Okay, because looking at their other QT that they have on the other side of town, it doesn't have that. It has, you know,
Pork
right
chop.
in, right out only.
Yeah, there's a pork chop on one.
On Pinnell, which seems to work very, very well, because that's, I mean, happy to say that's one of the busiest places I've ever been in, is QT. The friendliest people in the busiest place. But one of the reasons people are friendly and people are happy and going in there all the time is because of the ease of getting in. Ease of getting out of it's not as much if you're trying to get off to go a certain direction, I know. But that turning left onto Florence Boulevard, that close to Camino del Mercado, which we see the nightmare that happens right down the street from it, right near where the AM/PM is at.
It's actually a
That's
reason they
horrible
put a
place.
stoplight there.
Huh?
It's a reason they put a stoplight there.
That's the dead reason, but they're not gonna put a stoplight in front of the QT. The Camino del Mercado, there is a stoplight, which would give us the flow we need to get out of there. Just like it gives us the flow we need to get out on Cottonwood Lane. And I love the whole idea of everything like that. I just want something different to get in and out of this building.
Do we still have Terry on the line as well? Did we have a traffic impact analysis done on that? And then,
Yes. Terry, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Terry, what's your thoughts on this? Reviewing it, I mean,
Can we pull up the site plan, James?
I'll pull up another one. Is this good, Terry?
On my screen, if you, yeah, there you go. In short, we're comfortable with the movements that have been proposed. Again, like the previous item that was discussed, as we look at Florence Boulevard, that may very well change from a full access to a right in, right out only. But at this time, we're comfortable with what's proposed.
does the current design of that, I guess, it seems awkward.
It doesn't allow for right out almost.
Yeah, it seems like an awkward.
You can turn left or right.
No, I know you can.
It's just awkward.
It just looks weird to me visually. Is it just
Well,
me?
what it's doing
It's
is
just me?
trying
Okay,
to channel
thanks.
the intent. When you look at it, that's a right turn lane. So what's happening is we're trying to channelize the right turn onto Florence into a travel lane rather than into the right turn lane. So that's why it's bumped out like it is.
Right.
That's the more appropriate way of doing it. Does that clarify things a little bit?
100%. I'm just curious, is it like on the Texas Roadhouse, we didn't require them to like create that bump out?
Mr. Chairman, Terry, but you're not in the answer you just gave further complicates the left out that is being accommodated according to the traffic analysis. I mean, I'm sorry, it's counterintuitive. Again, you're proposing full access onto a very busy street. And I have to
And
agree
yes-
with Commissioner McBride.
And I totally understand and respect that perspective. Looking at the traffic impact analysis, we felt this was a reasonable request, a reasonable compromise, if you will. The bump out in terms of the Texas Roadhouse, as I discussed, there's going to be striping. That will include a bump out similar to what's shown here. This one is a physical impediment, but it'll be painted along Florence in front of Texas Roadhouse to do essentially the same thing.
Yeah. No, I understood that. I
Because
just thought
you
it was
don't want
interesting.
traffic pulling. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, I thought that was interesting that during that design of that, if we weren't gonna require that, I mean, I get we don't want a long, drawn out turn lane, because that causes other traffic issues that people just drive in.
Right.
And so, but we didn't require them to create the physical bump out in the Texas Roadhouse.
Correct. We can accomplish that with a painted median. On this one, it's safer to do a physical impediment because of the length of run out. In short, what it comes down to is you don't want that, because beyond the bump out, you'll see a right turn lane. You don't want people pulling into the right turn lane and then trying to merge into traffic.
Gotcha.
You
Makes
want
sense.
them to merge directly into traffic.
Yep.
But I'm guessing the amount of cars that are going to be flowing in and out of this establishment compared to what's going in and out of the Texas Roadhouse don't even compare with each other. They couldn't. By sitting there watching the flow of what happens at the QT on Pinell. I mean, they're extremely busy. They're going to have a lot higher volume. They've got to keep their
Correct.
business alive.
But 700 feet to the east, you got coming out of the Cracker Barrel and out of Arco Station, they taking left-hand turns all the time, and it doesn't seem to be a problem.
It is a big problem with them there. It is
What's
a
that?
major
No, I
problem.
go in and out of there all the time.
Is the city's planning on changing that situation and putting us traffic light there?
I agree. I mean, I think that, I think it's a valid concern you guys have, by all means. But, at least for myself, traveling around this community enough, I find that, if I want to go particular directions, I leverage the access points that are given to me. So if I want to go left out of QT here, I'm going to the stoplight. Personally, because I just know that it's probably going to be faster and easier and safer for me and my family than if I'm driving with them. And so I get the concern, but at the same time, I feel like we got to kind of give drivers the benefit of the doubt. They got to pass a test to get a license, I guess. So we should allow them to make the appropriate decisions. They don't always make the right ones. I was just in an accident not that long ago. Not my fault.
It's the same thing as the one on Pinell. It was required at the one on Pinell.
And that has to
guessing
do,
the same
but that
thing.
has to do with ADOT, because ADOT controlled Pinell, and ADOT requires right in, right out onlys. Right, we had that conversation. That's why Roberto's had right in, right out only on. That's why the Jack in the Box across the street. That's why the only one that doesn't is Fast Trip, and that was because that was built prior to ADOT implementing the right in, right out on Pinell. And so, I agree. I understand the concerns, but with the city's future plans of potential medians and everything else, I don't think that it deters the development of a potential establishment in our community.
Well, I like the whole thing except for the ingress egress.
That's fair.
I'd love to have them here. No, I'm definitely not against having this QT there. I just want it to be done safely, and when we talk about things that are gonna happen in the future, they put in a walk signal right down the street from that. Because the people were not good enough to obey the traffic rules, and we're doing, so we have to look out for the public. And so I'm looking out for the public right now. This is one of our jobs. And so that's my concern with it. I want to make sure the public is safe with the way this establishment's built.
Any other questions for staff? Member Dugan.
Tell me, on the west side, you got all these little dark and white spots. What is those?
Commissioner
Underground
Dugan,
storage.
that's underground drainage retention.
Oh, that's underground drain, okay. I just wondering what that was. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none. Applicant, would you like to come forward?
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Lauren Popper-Potter. My address is P.O. Box 1833, Tempe, Arizona 85280, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Quick Trip. I know you've had a long evening and you still have a few items yet to discuss, so I will be brief. We want to thank you for hearing our case this evening and reviewing our story. Really appreciate it. We're happy to bring you the latest and greatest Quick Trip to this area. We appreciate your staff. We've worked really closely with them on this. We appreciate Jim a lot. He's been really involved. I do want to speak briefly to some of the questions, just since the ingress and egress has been brought up. We did work with staff to develop dedicated right-in lanes on Florence and on Camino Mercado as well, based on the results of our traffic impact analysis that we did submit. So we do agree with staff that this has been a pretty good compromise in terms of access. We would love to keep the full access. To the chair's point as well, we do believe that during times where there might be higher traffic volumes on Florence and it would be a little bit more difficult to make that left out, people may feel more comfortable going to Camino Mercado. We're lucky we have the benefit of having signalized access there. I believe some of the other locations that you guys were speaking about don't have signalized access, so for us that's a huge benefit. And the ingress and egress on Florence as well doesn't serve just us. We're taking a portion of this site. There are still going to be developable portions that are going to be directly adjacent to us, so we will be sharing these drives in the future. We think that this works well for everybody and allows for future planning to go in here. So we do, again, appreciate working with your staff. They've been really great to work with. We are happy to be here tonight with a recommendation of approval on both of our requests. We fully support all of the conditions of approval that your staff has recommended. We want to thank you again for your consideration this evening. I'm happy to answer any additional questions that you may have. And with that, I will let you guys ask me anything.
All right. Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I only have one. You realize there's 4 convenience gas stations within 700 feet of you. I'm just wondering why you want to build another gas station when there's 4 others within 700 feet of you.
I did notice that there was some competition nearby. We believe that the free market provides the best opportunity for consumers. The more competition there is, the better that prices are. We believe personally that we offer a superior product. We're very proud of what we offer. Our QT kitchens, we think our stores offer a very clean and safe environment. So we would like the opportunity to be in the area as well.
Yeah.
Excellent answer, by the way. I feel like that's been practiced.
This is my first
well
rodeo.
said. Any other questions for the applicant? No? Awesome. Well, thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for your
Thank you.
patience as we've worked through this. All right. At this time, then, I would open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to come and speak to this agenda item? I'm gonna put in a rule that you only get to speak once, so you really gotta think about I'm just kidding, I'm teasing you, the agenda item.
John McGuire, 1748 North St. Francis Place. Very, very quickly, these are always the tough ones, right? Everybody wants the project, it's gonna be a great thing, but there's a couple of concerns that you don't wanna weigh the whole project down over. As with Texas Roadhouse, I agree with Commissioner McBride and Commissioner Snyder that I have concerns about people not only turning out left, we keep talking about the egress out, but people are gonna be turning left in from westbound Florence Boulevard into this too, because they're gonna say, oh, I just missed the left arrow at Camino Mercado. They're gonna go past and they're gonna turn left. Remember, you just recently approved the Hampton Inn across the street as well, where they have full access turn in and out of there. So this is gonna get become a busier intersection. My point with all of this is that when the median project comes up and the public is just screaming at you, no medians, remember this, and that medians are a good thing for a lot of reasons, and this will be one of them. So I think you should approve the project even withstanding my minor concerns about the full access turns on Florence as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing nobody, I will close the public portion and bring it back to the commission.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to approve the major site plan DSA 2000143 with the listed conditions.
I second.
So I have a motion from Member Benedict for approval on the major site plan and a second from Member Estrada. Any discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Benedict?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
No.
Vice Chairman McBride?
I just wanted to make sure that I was on record with the reason I'm going to vote yes, will be my vote, but I'm dead set against these things going forward anymore. I don't understand it. The public safety's got to be more concerned with building these projects. When they talk about the traffic impact, the traffic impact isn't going to change much. We're getting all these cars coming off Florence Boulevard, not Florence Boulevard, off I-10. It's nothing like any of the other places we're around. They're going to suck in so much traffic from that freeway because it's a great place to go to. I mean, it just draws people. It's a friendly place. I mean, I tell my employees about how I want them to act like this. It draws people to it, and it's going to draw even more traffic to it. And I regret that it's going to probably cause problems. And I know we talk about this median that's going to be down Florence Boulevard someday. Well, that someday is going to be a long ways off because that's an expensive project. And with what the funding is right now, we're not going to see it. Well, none of us are on this commission, I'm sure. But I'm going to vote yes on the project.
Chairman Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to approve the comprehensive site plan DSA 2000144.
I second.
I have a motion for Member Benedict and a second for Member Estrada for approval of the comprehensive sign plan. Sorry, sign to play. I'll get it out sooner or later.
I don't know what I said.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, will you please call the roll?
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Benedict?
Yes.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Yes.
Member Snyder?
Aye.
Vice Chairman McBride?
Yes.
And Chairman Miller?
Yes. All right. We're just moving right along, aren't we? Look, I tried to skip an agenda item again. Thank you very much. Congratulations, and good luck on the next steps of your project. All right. Next up, public hearing and consideration request by Ronnie Hosmer. Conditional use permit, DSA 2000157.
So this request is to allow for a tire sales, service, and repair business located within a B2 zone where such a use is subject to the approval of a conditional use permit. The site for the proposed business is at the southwest corner of Florence Boulevard and Pueblo Drive. It will be utilizing an existing building that's on the site. The proposal is to use the existing 1,850 square foot building for a 2-bay tire shop that will also have indoor tire storage associated in that building. There's a smaller building located on the site that previously was a convenience store that will be used for the business's associated office, and it will also be the location for the ADA accessible restroom. There's 7 parking spaces that are also to be provided on the site through striping to meet the required off-street parking associated with this business. This is a parking plan that was provided by the applicant to show how the parking lot striping would accommodate the required parking. I do want to note that the building itself used to be a service garage where there were 4 bays, 2 coming in from Florence Boulevard and then 2 coming in from Pueblo Drive. Because 4 bays would trigger more parking than what could be accommodated on the site, there is a condition of approval that only 2 service bays are allowed, and the 2 bays that will remain open are those coming in from Florence Boulevard. The 2 bays towards the south part of the building will be restricted. Number 1, there's parking to be provided perpendicular to that will restrict access into that, but they're also proposing curb stops in front of those bays to further restrict the access. When the fire department reviewed this proposal, I do want to note that there was a unique opportunity for both fire and building to meet the applicant out on the site, and I really liked the fact that opportunity was afforded here, because sometimes it looks different on paper, and so there was an opportunity to meet hands-on with the applicant to look at what would be necessary to accommodate this building to meet codes for a tire shop. So as a result of the analysis and that visit, per fire department requirements, no outdoor tire storage is permitted. Limited indoor tire storage is allowed so long as it does not exceed 6 feet of height above the finished floor. And then also there will be some additional fire flow detail needed prior to certificate of occupancy, because they do have to submit for an interior remodel. The other aspect that I want to talk about associated with the conditional use permit is there's an existing planter box and planting strip that exists at the corner of Florence and Pueblo. And one of the conditions that is being recommended is that that area is to be planted and maintained with shrubs. Prior to final approval, a planting plan is to be provided along with a stated method of how that's to be irrigated. One of the reasons for that condition is it will help utilize that existing planter bed. It was put in for a purpose, and it'll help dress up that corner and help minimize the vehicular dominance that type of use represents in the community corridor general plan designation. Another condition associated with this request is there is an existing pylon sign on the site. It's actually sitting in the public right-of-way. And the condition is that they can continue to use that existing pylon sign structure. However, it can't be made taller. Alternatively, a new monument sign no taller than 15 feet associated with the site would be permissible instead of the existing sign structure if the existing sign structure is removed. When reviewing conditional use permits, these are the criteria that have to be addressed, and the staff report talks about it at greater length. And the conditions that I've talked about in this presentation are a reflection of helping meet these criteria. As far as the public notification process is concerned, it met what's required of city code. There were no comments, however, that was received as a result of the public notification efforts. Staff recommends that Planning Commission approve this conditional use permit and the associated resolution for a tire sales, service, and repair business in a B2 zone with the following conditions that I've discussed in the staff report and presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have an important one.
Yeah, Member McBride.
The most important question of all this, and it's probably going to only mean something to a few of us, is where is the monkey cage going to be? You probably have no idea about that, do you? You would know about that. That's the old Shorty's gas station. And there was a monkey cage on the side of Shorty's gas station for many, many years. A very evil little monkey.
That's why he had a cage.
That's why he was in a cage. That's my only question. I don't see.
What did he ever do to you?
Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
believe me what he did to me. That's my only big question. That's a big
Yeah.
deal.
What a memory, yeah, now that you said, oh, wow.
All
I've been
right.
here a while.
That is not needed on the minor site plan.
It's a structure.
Member Benedict, and then and then I'll come to you.
Jim, as you know, a previous issue that we dealt with had to do with the planters and all of that, and it makes me, not that I don't have confidence in you, my friend, but it makes me nervous when we leave it very general about that, and that could really be a great addition. And so, let me just say, we sure depend on you to make that a really great addition. That'll really make a lot of difference for this. I am disappointed that we don't see the plan. It would help me.
You want to see the landscape plan?
Yeah, well, that would have been nice. I'm certainly not gonna hold up the progress.
That's fair.
Trying to communicate with my friend Jim.
There you go. I like it. Member Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, what I don't see in the discussion with regard to the tire activity is storage outside. I get that, I like that. But are they going to, will work be performed outside or in the bays?
That is unknown, so if that's a condition that you would like to propose to restrict tire activity to indoors only.
I
that
have
could
to
be
say,
noted.
to be consistent, yes. That is a condition that I think is necessary.
I feel that is a
We attempted-
small rabbit hole. I'll call it a small rabbit hole.
we
Because what's
attempted-
considered?
We attempted to put that condition on previous one.
Yes, we did, and we were
It didn't go through,
successful.
and the tire shop fell through, so whoever moves in there can work outside because we wouldn't put that condition on there.
One on Cottonwood?
The one on Cottonwood doesn't do tires now.
Yeah,
It just fell through or
yeah,
whatever.
they didn't move forward.
Ah.
At least not at this point. Member Peters.
Thank you, Commissioner. The only thing about putting something like that in is, I know I've gone to Big O Tire like probably 6 times with my boat trailer, and it's just, I've never taken it inside. They say pull around the outside, they come out with the jack me up, get the trailer tire put on, 15 minutes, I'm out of there and I'm gone, and if you restrict them, and like I said, I don't know if this building, if you can come around the back or anything, I think it's kind of limited as far as space goes. So if you just pull through and then, I don't know. I don't like the idea of putting something like that in and restricting them like that.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing your opinion. I understand, in theory, what you're going for, and I think we all would agree. But the difficult part becomes what constitutes like the no work or service, or is it checking tire pressure? Is that considered servicing?
Well-
Right? I mean, and that's where I think it's hard to define that. To then really, and then how do you follow through with whether they're carrying it out?
I'm talking about the conditions of pulling a tire, taking it and performing serious work. And instead of using the bays, which are theoretically constructed to accommodate that, you've got safety provisions, et cetera, you're now doing that in the parking lot. And I think that's not only an eyesore, but I think that's detrimental to general public safety.
My thing to that is, look, I do all my business, most of my business at Tire Pros. And all the time I pull up there and I'm outside, they pull a tire off and they fix the tire off and it's not inside. And he said the same thing with Discount Tires. So if you allow those stores to do it, this is double standards if you make them do it. So if the other ones get to do it, you should let this guy do it. That's my feelings. You know what, we had a debate on this, on one on Cottonwood Lane, and they were gonna do that, and
That was a much bigger site as well.
you know, I think that place never reopened, so I don't know what happened there, so. That's my feelings.
Okay. Well, we'll, any questions for staff? Any other questions for staff? At this point, then, applicant and/or their representative like to come forward? They might be able to enlighten us a little bit, you know what I mean?
I'm not a tire gal.
Sometimes we get caught in our own conversations and think, hey, why don't we just bring you forward? This will be.
So I'm Tanya Peters. I don't know if we're any relation, but I'm with True Design, and we're in Mesa, 2929 East Broadway, Suite 96. And we kind of got involved to help the applicant kind of get to this place, so we're happy to be here. Really appreciate James and all the work he did to kind of walk me through how it works. So I'll try to answer questions, but like I said, I'm more on the architect side than the tire person. But we do understand the landscape concerns, and with that planner there, I think it's a good opportunity for us to keep that looking nice. And we would appreciate being approved based on the recommendations. Any questions?
Any questions for the applicant?
You know about the monkey cage?
No, but I did
you
write
put a
it
monkey
down.
cage
I
in your
did
design?
write down monkey cage, so.
There you go. Nice.
You said her wild goose chase.
I'm going to ask you a question that I probably could have asked staff, but I'm since you're up here and you're the architect on it, right? On Pueblo, that's just a rolling curb the whole way down, all the way to the corner, I believe, right?
Right.
Is there anything mitigating, kind of pushing that further down? Or is, I know there's parking spaces, but there's no type of added curbing going south on Pueblo?
At the handicap, like the striping there, no.
Yeah, okay. That's all I had. Just was more of a question than anything. Just.
All right.
Any other questions for applicant? Well, thank you for being
Thank
here
you.
and patience, and you got to learn about a
I learned all
monkey
about
in
the
a
monkey
cage.
cage. Yep. Thanks.
All right, at this time, I will open it up to the public. Seeing nobody from the public, I will close the public portion. And bring it back to the commission. Yeah, sure. sounds good.
I'll make a motion to approve DSA-20-00157 with the recommendation from the staff.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion from Member Dugan to approve the conditional use permit and the associated the associated resolution with the specified conditions, and a second from Member Peters. Any discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Benedict?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Member Dugan?
Aye.
Member Snyder?
Aye.
Vice Chairman McBride?
Yes.
Chairman Miller?
Yes. Motion approved. Congratulations. Interesting, we didn't have conversation on ingress and egress on that one, guys.
I don't think the volume is going to be quite as high.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait. I hope that's the busiest tire shop in town. It's gonna be awesome. All right. Next agenda item. Public hearing and consideration of request by Richmond American Homes, conditional use permit, DSA 20-00175.
So similar to the previous presentation this evening that talked about a proposed conditional use permit for a model home complex, this one is being proposed by Richmond American Homes within Cottonwood Ranch Parcel F. If you recall, they were here a month ago requesting housing product approval for Parcel F. Now they are coming forward with the proposal for a model home complex that will be consisting of 2 homes, one with the sales office, and then also an off-street parking area that will be temporarily there during the life of the model home complex. The proposed location is at the northeast corner of Veckel Street and Westfall. And again, model home complexes are allowed with the approval of a conditional use permit. This helps ensure that upon the expiration of the permit, the homes will be reverted to a fully functioning home, and any associated signage, fencing, etc. will be removed. Here's a layout of the proposed model home complex. The parking lot will be located at the corner, and then the middle lot will be the location of the model home that'll have a sales office in lieu of the garage. And then the home furthest to the east will be basically just a show home. This is a excerpt of the 2 previously approved housing plans that will be incorporated into this model home complex. When reviewing conditional use permits, this is the criteria that have to be addressed. The staff report talks about this in more length, but in evaluating this, staff found that all of these have been met. Public hearing notification efforts for this request meet and exceed that's which is required by city code, and there were no comments received as a result of the public notification efforts. Staff recommends that Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit and associated resolution, subject to the following conditions of approval that were also included in your staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none. At this time, I would like to invite the applicant and/or their representative come forward. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being patient this evening. Next time, we're going to put the general plan up front, so everybody has, so they get the opportunity to.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Jake Nickel, 18220 North 68th Street, apartment 107 in Phoenix, Arizona 85054. Richmond American, we're super excited to begin our model home complex here for Cottonwood. James did a great job. He covered all the bases as usual. I just want to point out a few things, and I kind of touched on it a little bit in our previous meeting, but as Richmond's acquiring more and more land out here and starting our communities, we want to make sure that we're providing a diverse lineup of model homes and not just building the same 3 or 2 model homes in every single community. So what we decided to do on this one is build the P919 floor plan, which is one that we haven't built yet. Just provide a little bit more diversity within our model home complexes. We are also doing a P920 as well, which I believe we have built that. We have modeled that here in some of our previous communities. However, we're switching up the options within the house itself to get a little more flow of the home. The last thing we want to do is have people who live in Casa Grande who want to still buy here, force them to drive all the way down or up north into Phoenix or all the way out west to go view a home. And we do have digital options to view the houses online, but that doesn't always work well for everyone. So we want to make sure we have physical houses for everyone to see. Also in regards to the owl comment that was made earlier, I did speak with our land team earlier this week. They have notified me that we are aware of the owl burrow that is located within this parcel. And our land team has partnered with our geotechnical team, GTI, as well as AZ Raptors to take a look at the burrow, handle any owls that may be located within that burrow, and make sure that everything is safe and sound within that owl burrow there that's located in the parcel. Other than that, I can take any questions you guys have.
Questions for the applicant? No? That must be nice to be at the end of the, oh, there we go. Okay. Member Bennett.
I'm just totally curious why the parking lot at the first lot rather than the last one?
Great question.
Why do you pick one over the other?
Mm-hmm. Our thought process behind this is as you're driving in, we don't want to obscure any view from the home itself. As you're coming in, we didn't want any walls or anything there to block the side view of the home. So we placed the 2 homes further down the street. So as you enter in, you get a better view of the 2 houses as you approach the models, instead of having it right up against the start of the street there.
This is why they're in sales, okay?
This is why,
It's just don't question the people that are in charge. That's right. Any other questions for the applicant?
Can't top that one.
Yeah.
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you for being here this evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Where do they keep the sidewalk in between the two when 2 people buy the house and they're neighbors and like each other?
You have to be close.
Yeah, you better like your neighbor if you got a sidewalk. All right. At this time, I'll open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to speak to this agenda item? You have patiently been waiting here all evening, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, it's the work of a volunteer.
Right? That's
Yeah,
it.
Passion, not money.
That's it.
So can my comments from before get carried over to this, or should I repeat all of that?
Yeah, well, yeah, sure.
I don't know how.
Ask the lady that does the minutes, not me. Yeah, I would like you to copy and paste my statement from before.
Statement from before on the company
And
that's
paste
been
it under this
following.
agenda item.
Yeah.
There you
Is
go.
that okay?
That's fine, I'll go ahead and do it.
Okay. And just to note, AZ Raptors, it does not seem with any of the boroughs that I've seen on Richmond properties, working with the organization that you're working for, that they're following the proper protocol. There's supposed to be one-way doors put in there for multiple days. There's supposed to be the borough completely excavated to be sure there's no eggs or babies in there, which hasn't been done. And I would recommend finding an organization that would actually relocate the boroughs instead of displacing them, because displacing them, which appears to be what is happening now, is just pushing them into other construction areas, into other areas of mass development, and is just leading to their death anyway. So I would appreciate if you would look into who you're using to relocate and make sure they're following proper protocol by state and federal guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And at this time, I will open it up to anybody else from the public. All right, I will close the public portion and bring it back to the commission.
Chairman, I'd like to move to approve conditional use permit DSA 20-00175 and the associated resolution for Richmond Homes Model Home Complex.
Fantastic. I have a motion from Member Benedict.
Second.
Oh, he's giving it to him. Member Estrada.
Either way.
Yeah.
He's
I have a
working
second
on
from Member
commission.
Estrada for approval. And just in case the mic didn't catch it, included the conditional use permit and the associated resolution.
Thought I said that.
You did.
You did.
You did. I don't hear you as clearly through the mic, though, as everybody else. You're muffled. Any discussion? Hearing none, will you please call the roll?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Yes.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Member Snyder,
Aye.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes.
and Chairman Miller.
Yes. All right, motion approved. I would encourage maybe an exchange of some information. You might be able to reach out to some people in the company and let them know. Sure. Thank you for being here and making it public. We appreciate it. All right. Next agenda item, public hearing and consideration request by Chris Morgan of United Engineering Group, DSA 20-00154, preliminary plat.
So this preliminary plat request is for the Marabella subdivision. And it actually has been in front of Planning Commission a number of times. Preliminary plats expire after 2 years if it's not followed up with a final plat. To give you a general idea of where this is located, it's south of the McCartney Center, PAD, on the south side of McCartney Road. And just again, a little bit of background, in 2016 and again in 2018, United Engineering Group, on behalf of the owner RMG Marabella, received approval for this preliminary plat. And phased preliminary plats expire after 2 years. And this new request is the same as the one in front of you 2 years ago. And essentially it's for a 104-acre area. Within that 104 acres, there's 274 single-family lots proposed. And it would also establish various rights-of-way, drainage, and open space tracts that would officially become dedicated at the time of the recording of the final plat. Now, in front of you the last time was a variance for long blocks, a subdivision variance, as the city code has a maximum distance of 660 feet unless a subdivision design variance is approved. This doesn't have to be reconsidered for this variance, however, because subsequent to you approving this variance the last time, it did go in front of Planning Commission with your approval, and they in turn also approved that subdivision design variance. They're not proposing a modification to that block length, so it doesn't require new consideration for the variance. This is an overview of the proposed lotting as a whole. And as you see, it involves the extension of a number of rights-of-way that extend through the city. Arizola Road would tie into Hennis. Hennis would tie into the existing Palomino Parkway. Hennis Road to the south is designed to meander to the south and to the east to tie in with the existing Hennis Road alignment. The three phases associated with this plat includes within Phase 1, 104 lots. These lots range between 6,300 square feet to just shy of 13,000 square feet, and there'd be 11 acres of open space. Phase 2 is 70 lots, and those lots are significantly larger in size, where there would be 5.5 acres of open space provided, meeting the minimum open space requirements for single-family residential areas in all 3 phases. And Phase 3 is 100 lots, and they range between 6,300 and 13,000 square feet in size, approximately, with 8.72 acres of open space provided. When reviewing preliminary plats, these are the criteria that we look at to ensure that everything's being adequately addressed. This has all been provided within your staff report, and also it's a rehash from the presentation about 2 years ago in December of 2018. But I do want to just hit on a couple of elements of that as they are carried forward as recommended conditions. Firstly, in terms of fire access, because of the dimensions of the subdivision and to ensure adequate points of fire emergency ingress and egress, there exists, or there, what would be dedicated on the plat is a 20-foot wide emergency only access to the west of McCartney Road. It would just technically otherwise function as an open space tract. There's also an access point not only at the Hennis-Palomino intersection with McCartney, but the street to the east also provides access. One of the conditions of approval, however, is that there would be a 20-foot wide emergency access road and easement established extending along the original Hennis alignment from the development to McCartney Road, and that's to be installed and accepted or otherwise financially secured prior to the final plat. Other infrastructure relates to stoplights. So, as you know, there was a temporary string wire stoplight constructed at the Peart and McCartney Road intersection recently. However, it's not a permanent type configuration. And based on the traffic impact analysis associated with this preliminary plat, it basically identifies the need that there will be cause for 2 stoplights, the Peart and McCartney intersection, as well as one at the intersection with Palomino Parkway and McCartney Road. So a condition of approval, again, that's being carried forward from 2 years ago is that prior to the recordation of a final plat, the following financial contributions are to be provided by the applicant towards the installation of traffic signals to alleviate the development's impact at the following 2 intersections, Hennis and Palomino at McCartney, where there would be 24% share of that traffic signal because they're roughly contributing to about 24% of the need for that stoplight. And then Peart at McCartney, where there would be 10% share of that traffic signal. With regard to drainage flows, the final drainage report is to delineate with appropriate estimation of stormwater flows the paths of the watershed areas. And then as far as utilities go, just in general, we have to look at the sewer infrastructure, water, electric, gas, and telecommunication. Specifically with sewer, the existing sewer line in McCartney has commitments on it. It was installed to serve McCartney Center and does not have excess capacity to serve additional development. So as a result, the applicant is aware of this and is looking at possible options to how to extend sewer to a line that is not at capacity. It is not at capacity at Peart Road, roughly where the Kinder Morgan gas line easement separates Marabella on the north from Mission Ranch on the south. So there are a couple of options. One is to run the sewer directly west from the south corner of the Marabella neighborhood over to Peart. And another option is to extend it through the Kinder Kinder Morgan gas line easement with their approval, and then run it through Mission Ranch, which happens to be through the same ownership and agreements establishing that possibility. Another option, however, is to have a limited amount of sewer or a companion sewer line running in McCartney Road. If they go with that route, the condition of approval essentially says that there has to be a 20-foot wide sewer easement that would overlap that 20-foot wide fire emergency access easement. The next steps, should you approve this, that this is actually a carryover from the 2018 slide. So some of this has already been accomplished, such as the subdivision variance. But basically, if you consider approval of the preliminary plat, the next step is the final plat would go to City Council. At that time, we will have had required final reports, as well as subdivision improvement drawings, as well as a final landscape and wall plan that would be administratively reviewed. As far as the public notification process goes, it met that which is required by city code. I did not have them post a public sign because that's not a requirement for preliminary plats, and plus there was like 9 other yellow signs dotting the Casa Grande landscape this month, so I decided to save a square. I did receive 2 comments, one from Tom Eggert, the McCartney Center developer, just re-emphasizing the fact that that McCartney line was built for McCartney Center and not sized to accommodate additional flows, which we were aware of. And then also Barbara Berry, who's an adjacent property owner of undeveloped urban ranch zone land, who her sentiment over the phone call was just that she was excited to hear this because she's owned this parcel for 30 years, and hopefully that means there's an opportunity to potentially sell it. Staff recommends that Planning Commission approve the preliminary plat, subject to the conditions that were in place 2 years ago. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff?
The city council has to approve this after us, correct?
Commissioner Dugan, they will have to consider approval of the final plat.
Oh, okay.
So we get to move them forward.
Correct.
So they can start working on the final plat. And if we mess up here, they gotta go through the whole thing again. No other questions for staff? All right. Applicant and/or, yeah, want to come forward?
There's our guy, the last guy.
That's it, man. Waiting patiently in the corner.
The last full chair.
I hope you stick around for the general plan afterwards, because it's going to be riveting.
Oh, I will have to explain to a 6-year-old why I didn't give him a hug. Good night.
That's right. My 5-year-old's upset already, so I'm right there with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Chris Morgan, United Engineering Group, 3205 West Ray Road, Chandler. I think Jim did a good job explaining the history on this. I will not gloss over the lots of effort and time we went through and all the little details here, but as he mentioned, this has come up a couple of times, so instead I would be happy to answer any questions on the details. The one thing I would like to point out on behalf of the owner, as Jim alluded to, the same owner does own the property directly south, and LGI was here about to build on one portion of it. That same owner still owns the eastern portion. We were much more hopeful in 2016 when we first processed this that we were looking at a much faster timeline of Marabella being in the same conversations that LGI was just in for model home complexes, but we are hopeful that now that we're seeing some critical mass and that'll be here very soon. So happy to answer any questions.
We'll make it easy for you.
Wow. He came and he waited all this time, and you guys aren't even going to ask him a single question.
Yeah. You should have put him first.
You're our leader. Well, thank you for being here this evening. That's right. That's right.
About that hiking trail that goes through there. I remember that from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
There's a trail that goes diagonally.
It just didn't make sense to me that we went from Palomino Parkway that it turns into Hennis, then But I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm not a streets guy, so I'm not worrying about it.
Preliminary. They got a lot of work.
They got, yeah. I'm gonna, open this up to the public. No? Our one public member doesn't wanna come up and speak, huh? I'm closing the public, portion then, and, bringing it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the preliminary plat, DSA 20-00154, and all of the following, or listed conditions from before.
I'll second that.
All right, so I got a motion from Member McBride. I have a second from Member Dugan. Any discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Yes.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Member Snyder,
Aye.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes.
and Chairman Miller.
Yes. All right, congratulations. Now go, well, the 5-year-old's probably asleep already, but, you know, or 6-year-old, yours is a 6-year-old, sorry. But thanks for being here. Excited to see another project come in and hopefully taking the next steps.
Yeah.
Dude, that is awful, sorry. Can we pass the notes during a meeting? Don't show the director that. He would be very upset with you right now. He just showed me a sign to table the general plan.
Scared John.
With that, though, out of curiosity, from our legal team, because we have the general plan on the agenda, and we have reviewed the general plan, and there is no public present, and I don't know if there is online, but you guys could check to see who's online. Does a formal presentation need to be presented, or can we just make a motion to approve? Or, well, there's no motion on it this evening.
So before we have that conversation, let me just sort of frame where we are, okay?
Please do.
So the state law requires that planning commissions, when considering a new general plan or a major amendment to an existing general plan, hold 2 public hearings on that general plan at different locations. So this evening is the first public hearing at this location, and we have a special meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, December 8th, at our Community Rec Center in the community room for the second public hearing. So we're gonna have to have 2 public hearings. We have to open a public hearing. And at the second public hearing is when your commission's going to vote on a recommendation to city council. So this evening, and our attorney can weigh in and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but this evening, I think what we can do is we can open the public hearing, see if there's any public comment, which clearly there's not gonna be, and then we can close the public hearing and meet the requirements of that. There doesn't have to be a presentation this evening on the general plan. We can postpone that to Tuesday night, where we can make a presentation and then have a formal vote at that time. Would that be accurate, Mark?
Yeah, there's no requirement for a presentation, even on Tuesday. It's
Sure.
just 2 public hearings.
Right, we just have to hold them, and obviously if there's public, we want to present, because we want to give them as much information as we can. Okay, so with that, being the,
I would just follow the same procedure.
yeah, I'm right here, man. I'm all for, I am opening now the public hearing for the 2030 general plan, as stated on our agenda, and I would open it up to public comment. Just making sure there's nobody coming from outside. Seeing nobody come forward, I will close the public comment portion. Does anybody have any questions for staff?
Yeah, but I'm afraid you'll hit me.
My
Can I
kids
wait
are
till
asleep,
Tuesday?
so.
So if I could just make one quick statement, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, you can.
Earlier today, I emailed to each planning commissioner the PDF version of the newest plan that reflects all the 60-day review comments we received and the edits that we've made. So my first question is, does everyone receive that PDF, and could you open it? Is there anyone who could not open that PDF? Okay, good.
I don't know.
So that'll give you some opportunity then to look it over between now and Tuesday, and if there are other questions, I can either make a short presentation on Tuesday or not, depending on if we have public at that point, and what the desires of the commission might be, or answer any questions at that time as well.
I could open it, yes. Sorry, I wanted to confirm that. Yeah, I was able to.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir, yes, sir?
If a comment is in order, I happen to know that Director Tice and staff, but Director Tice in particular, has spent an inordinate amount of time working on the semi-final draft of this general plan. He has spent innumerable hours reviewing the document and pulling it together so that it is standard, that it is in keeping with the kind of quality control that will make this a document for the next decade. And I want to acknowledge that staff effort that they put into, and Mr. Tice and his staff in specific. Well done.
I was going to be a smart aleck, but I decided to hold my tongue in appreciation for all the hard work that you guys put into this general plan. All right. Moving on to the next agenda item then. Reports. Y'all got your reports from the director. Looks like things are going well. Any?
We're very busy. We're very busy. I will note that we have passed the 1,000 single-family home permits for this calendar year. We're at 1,040.
Well, that's a lot of houses.
So that is a lot, yes.
What are you projecting next year?
You know, I think it'd probably be about the same. I would say about the same.
Really? Not
Yes.
more than 1,100 houses or 1,200 houses?
That would probably be about, yes.
Great. Yeah.
Yep. Move to adjourn?
So you need the 7,500 square foot Texas Roadhouse, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me, gentlemen, I have a motion to adjourn on the table.
Two of them.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.